Damn, like I knew I needed a haircut, but this shit crazy. What's up, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about what happened to the potential of Alphari. This past offseason, Alphari announced on Twitter that he would be role swapping to mid lane and moving to Brazil. This came as a massive surprise to me because not that long ago, Alphari was being heralded as arguably the best laning Western top laner maybe of all time. He was someone who people thought would finally break through and beat the Korean and Chinese top laners who had dominated the Western teams for so long. Instead, Alphari has gone from someone who went 5 games with SKT in 2017 to someone who's role swapped and is now moving to a minor region. So let's talk about what happened to Alphari. Although his career definitely isn't over, I want to talk about right now how good actually was the top lane version of Alphari. A player who found tremendous success. If you told me in 2017, after Alphari had just gone 5 games with SKT at Worlds, that in 5 years' time he would be teamless, titleless, and moving to Brazil to play mid lane, I would have called you crazy. A player with such obvious talent, how is it possible that his career turned out the way that it did? While Alphari definitely is and was a very, very talented player, to me, his is a story of underutilized and wasted talent. Whenever anybody talks about Alphari, all they always talk about, at least at this point in his career, is his laning. This is for great reason, as during his time, he was one of the most dominant Western laners we've ever seen, and he was easily the best gangplank that the West had ever seen, and he definitely created massive leads for him over and over again, but there's just only so far winning lane can take you. Although laning is obviously an extremely important part of League of Legends, and being a great laner can make the other parts of the game much, much easier, I think there are a lot of detriments to making laning your calling card, and if you're a player that's only good at that aspect of the game, I think you're going to find it very hard to win games and to be on successful teams. To me, a League player who is a really great laner and isn't excelling at the other parts of the game is very similar to a basketball player who is a great scorer. You're always going to need great scorers, and they're always extremely valuable to the team, but there's always going to be other great scorers, and the best players in the world can always do more than just score the ball. Additionally, if you ever have, in basketball terms, an off night, or in league terms, a subpar or below average laning phase, then all of a sudden the value that you provide to your team is next to nothing. And so that's why I always believe it's very, very important to work on all aspects of the game of League. It is my belief that although Alphari was always an outstanding laner, I felt that the longer his career went on, he actually struggled to really improve at the things outside of lane, such as team fighting, snowballing, assisting his team in making plays, and game awareness. These things he never seemed to reach the same heights that he had at his laning phase. One way that we can highlight this is by comparing some of the advanced stats between Alphari and Impact during the LCS's 2021 spring split, which is arguably one of Alphari's most dominant laning splits of his entire career. During the split, Alphari had massive laning leads, and as a result, he averaged a 6.1 KDA, the highest of any top laner, and led the entire league in gold per minute. In my opinion, stats like these clearly show the difference between a talented top laner like Alphari and Impact, who's probably the most dominant top laner that the LCS has ever seen. And the gold difference versus damage shows that even though Impact is getting less resources, he's able to be just as impactful, if not more impactful, than Alphari was. In my opinion, although Alphari was a very strong top laner at his peak, he never quite reached the heights of best top laner in whatever region he was playing in, and this really all came down to his inability to consistently improve at the aspects of League that weren't laning. Now that we've established kind of a baseline for how good Alphari was at his peak, I want to take a look back and see how he failed to win a championship. Was it his fault, or did he simply never have the roster around him to contend and make it happen? Despite Alphari's crazy potential, I think that unfortunately he let media, fans, or people around him somehow affect his perception of his own gameplay and top lane in general. If you take a look at 2017 Misfits, and especially that SKT series, Alphari simply looked like a very, very talented, classic Western weak side top lane. He was playing team fight, bruisers, or tanks in pretty much every game, and the only game that he played a carry in was in game 1 versus Hooney's Jace, and he got absolutely smashed. Although his laning was good, it was not the smash top lane, snowball through lane style that brought Misfits their wins. It was actually snowballing through bot lane and putting Alphari on more team assist picks. Sadly, this was not a trend that continued for his career, as it seemed the longer that it went on, the more he seemed to care about having a good CSD, getting a lot of kills, and making sure he was the carry, and he didn't seem nearly as focused to me on getting the win. This is obviously a complete opposite to the formula that he found success with early on in his career. And if you look at, for example, his Team Liquid and Vitality teams, they were both teams that played very heavily towards topside and then expected him to carry. But sadly, just like every other Western top laner to ever exist, this was not Alphari's strong suit, and he was much better during the mid and late game on more supportive picks and things that allowed to help his team carry than being the straight carry himself. And I think that's what really led to the unsuccessful championships and his inability to win a ring.